Let me know, what do you think is the best way to handle rude boaters on the water? What is fishing etiquette? I've always been so scared to address this topic because it's a moving target and it's always so subjective to whatever's going on for that day, for that situation, and it's so opinion based. But nevertheless, it's so much, dude, it's so much easier to think about the right way to approach these situations when you're not on the water, when you haven't had a problem, when you're in the shop. If you can think about it now before it actually happens, it just, you can think clearer. It's the best way I can think. You can think clearer. A lot of times when you're on the deck of this bass boat right here and things are happening, a pontoon crosses your line. You ever had that happen? Jet skiers are in the pocket. You think somebody's trying to cut you off. You think somebody's trying to take your spot. It's really hard to think. Whatever comes to your mind first is probably the wrong thing to say or do. Can we come to that agreement? I don't care what you think about fishing etiquette. I don't care what you think about dealing with rude boaters, rude homeowners. The first thing that comes to your mind to do in those situations is almost always the wrong thing to do. So in today's video, I want to try to come up with the best ways to deal with problems on the water. It's not easy, but I do think it's something that we could all do a lot better, including myself. To be clear, this video is not a video where I'm talking to you and trying to teach you. We're having a conversation about what's the best way to deal with these situations on the water, because if you fish long enough, you're gonna have them. If you fish tournaments, you certainly are gonna have them if you haven't already. And I wanna make it crystal clear, this old boy has not always handled those situations in a perfect way. All right, now this first thing we're gonna talk about is probably not gonna be popular. So let's say something is happening to you out there on the water. There's an unfavorable situation. You got jet skiers flying around you. A pontoon goes across your line. Your co-angler is talking too much. He's thrown across your line. Karen on the bank. What's some other situation that you had that really tick you off? Let me know in the comment section. Some things that you had happen while you're out there on the water that have been really difficult to deal with. Difficult boaters or whatever the case may be. Whatever it is, the best thing for you to do when that happens is not react. Don't do anything. Let me tell you what I'm talking about here. So when you're faced with that situation, the boater, the pontoon guy runs over your line, jet skiers are flying around in your cove, your co-angler's talking too much, he's spitting tobacco all over the side of your boat. Might be time to fight then. But the first thing that comes to your mind, the first thing that you think to say, first thing you think to do, it's probably not the best decision. So my number one suggestion, anytime something comes across that's hard for you to deal with, that's affecting you, is not to react. Don't say anything, don't do anything, just don't react. And I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't do that just yet. So the number one reason you're not going to react when something like that happens is because you don't know what their intentions are. A lot of people are just on the water doing their thing and they really don't mean you any harm. And it's really not your job to try to educate them on boat etiquette. That's something they got to learn on their own. You're not the police. So you'll get yourself in a situation that you don't need to be in by trying to be the hero. A lot of times we just don't know people's intentions. And a lot of times they don't have any intentions at all. Second thing that I like to suggest in a hard to deal with situation, this works best when you're dealing with another boater. You feel like somebody's cut you off, you feel like somebody's trying to hole jump you or something like that. If you're close enough to talk to them, and by close enough to talk to them, I mean in the same voice, in the same volume that I'm talking to you right here in this video. If you gotta scream, you gotta be like, "Hey buddy, you're on my hole." If you gotta do something like that, or if you gotta troll over to him, if you gotta crank up the big engine to get to him, I don't think you should say anything at all. They're further enough away that they're probably not bothering you. But if you can speak just like how I'm speaking to you now, I think it's a good idea to just go over to them or just ask them, did you mean to? What that does is it helps you get clarity on their It helps you get clarity on their intentions for what they're doing to you. Did you mean to? That could help diffuse the situation. Did you mean to cut me off? Just ask the question. Did you mean to fish here because you know I fished here yesterday? That helps you at least get clarity on what their intentions are. Don't go lighting somebody up. Remember, I'm talking, okay? Remember, I'm talking about this and not to you about this. I'm not teaching at this moment. We're exploring the possibilities. Ask them, did you mean to? Followed by whatever you think they've done. Get clear on their intentions. That's the second thing I would ask you to do. I would ask me to do. I think that we collectively as a fishing community should do. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I state my intentions. So I'm going to tell the person what I plan to do. What I mean by that is I'm going to state my intentions. I've already asked them what their intentions are, and I'm clear on that. After I've listened to the answer, then I'm going to state what I plan to do next. I plan to fish down this bank. That's it. That way they're clear on what you're doing. You never know what they're doing. They may be just trying to get to their dock. They may be brim fishing. They may have a camp set up on the bank and they're just trying to get back to camp. But you want to get clear on their intentions, and you want to make sure it's clear what you plan to do in a calm way. Remember, I'm hearing this before you do. I'm hearing this. I'm reminding myself of this. Why is it important to talk about what I plan? What's my next plan? Just like how you ask what their intentions are, it's very important for you to let the people around you know, if they're willing to listen, what your intentions are. Sir, I plan to fish down this bank. They need to know exactly what you're doing. They don't know if you're bass fishing. They don't know if you're brim fishing. They don't know if you're in a tournament. Just kindly state what your plan is. I plan to fish down this bank. And they may say, oh, we're just trying to get to our camp. Oh, my grandson lives here and we're just visiting. You don't ever know what people's intentions are, and they don't assume they know what your plan is. State your plan. That way everybody's clear on what everyone is doing. Don't react first, and become clear on everybody's intentions. Now, after you've made it clear what your intentions are, I think it's also a good idea to politely say what you would like to see happen. What that would look like is, I plan to fish down this bank, and is there any way that I could have this bank to myself? I'd like to kind of fish this alone. Like, probably try to insinuate on what you would like to happen next. Now, you got to be careful with that, because you're going to get a response from that. And you might not like the response next is the thing. So you got to listen for the response. And you got to be ready for that, because you did ask the question and you may not get the response that you're expecting or that you want. And if you don't get the response that you're expecting or you want, I think now it's time to ask yourself two questions. These next two questions that you ask can either escalate the situation to, it's limitless. It could escalate the situation, or it could de-escalate the situation very easily. And this is how you handle difficult situations on the water. A lot of this is not going to be popular, but once I've made my intentions clear, once I've stated what I'd like to see happen next, I ask myself these two questions. And this is just to myself under my breath. I say, am I catching any fish here? Second question is the person that I'm upset with, or I'm having trouble with, or I feel is rude, or I feel is impeding, or encroaching on my water? If I feel like any of that's happened, are they catching any fish? And if their response is contentious and the answer to both of those questions is no, just leave, bro. Go somewhere else. You're not catching any fish. They're not catching any fish. There's nothing to gain here. Let them win. Sometimes you just gotta lose. I know someone say it's about the principle. That's one thing we always say. It's not about the fact that I'm catching fish. It's about the principle. You're not a school teacher and you're not a principal. Just let it go. This is where it gets really hard. Now, when you ask yourself those two questions, am I catching any fish? Is the other person catching any fish? And the answer is yes. Maybe you are catching fish there, or you definitely plan to catch fish there. What do you do now? I really don't know. All you can do is ask. And from there, you've got to decide whether this is a situation that's worth it. Do you want to escalate it higher, however that needs to be? Or do you have better things to do with your life and better purpose? It's the only way I know to talk about that. I really don't know what you do. Let's say you are catching fish there. The person is contentious with you. They give you a lot of smack talk and they continue to fish that area. What do you do next? That's where it becomes really difficult. And at that point, it becomes a moral standard situation. What do you want for yourself? Because in today's age of social media, most likely people are going to know about it, even on the local level. Even if you're not fishing a tournament, people will know about it. And that's a question you have to answer for yourself. I couldn't even tell you what I would do. I don't know. I haven't really been in that situation a lot of times. Curious to hear, what would you do? I think most of you guys know by now that I have an online fishing school. I want to invite you to come, by the way, but every Sunday I do a Q&A in the community section of my online fishing school. That's basically where anybody can ask me any question that they have about fishing. My first question that I want to address is from Tron Foster. I think I fish with Tron more than anybody that I have in the school. Matter of fact, I know I have. Tron says he's in the market for some new boxes. I'm looking for something that's more durable. So, Tron, this one is actually kind of difficult to answer. There's a lot of tackle storage options out there, but a lot of them take up too much space for me. And I found a program that is probably not popular at all that seemed to work for me really well. So I put all of my hard baits in just the regular Plano, whatever you call them. And I used to carry so many hard baits, and then I finally realized, like, dude, you haven't used these crankbaits or these jerk baits in 20 years. So I started reducing my hard baits because I really know the ones that I use a lot, and I put them in these smaller tackle boxes, not that I think it's 3,700, 1,700, something sevens. I didn't put them in those. I put them in the smaller ones. I carry 3 of each color, but in my truck, I have more of them. So the bigger boxes I put in my truck, and then the smaller ones, I keep in my boat with 3 of each color. It's probably 10 different versions, 10 different shapes, I guess is what I'm trying to say. For my soft plastics, personally, I have not found a good solution for soft plastic management and storage without taking up a whole bunch of space. So I use big 1-gallon Ziploc bags. Now there's some other Ziploc bag deals that you can buy. They're a lot bigger. I found that's the best thing because everything else that I tried took up too much space in my boat. It was too cumbersome and too expensive. It's hard to beat those Ziploc. Let me know what y'all are using for your soft plastic organization. That's the easiest for me. And I can write on top of the bag. This is from Jeremy Henke. Hope I'm saying that name right, Henke. If you could have only 3 rod and reel setups to fish ponds, what would it be? This is a great question. I'll oftentimes hear this. What would be your 3 best setups for fishing out of a kayak? What would be your 3 best setups for fishing in a pond? Honestly, it's not gonna be a lot different than when I use in my bass boat, to be honest with you. I'm gonna use probably the same setups regardless of where I'm fishing out of. Matter of fact, I do, because I fish in ponds. I got 2 boys and a girl. I got 3 kids. I film out of a kayak all the time. I fish out of a bass boat. I use the same setups. So my favorite 3, and I might could even reduce it to 2, would be a 7-foot medium heavy power rod. Matter of fact, Brian Barty made me one. One of the One of the members of my school made me one. I may even have it right here beside me. But he made me a 7-foot medium heavy. I don't think I have it here. Maybe it's in my boat. 7-foot medium heavy fast. That would be number one. Casting. That would be my casting setup. I can do anything with a 7-foot medium heavy casting setup. Number two, I would have a 7-foot medium fast spinning rod. I would have braided fluorocarbon on the spinning rod. On my bait caster, I would probably have 15-pound test, maybe even 20-pound test fluorocarbon. Straight fluorocarbon on the casting gear, braided fluorocarbon on the spinning rod. And honestly, for a third rod, I double up on one of the two. If I'm fishing ponds, I'm probably carrying my gear with me, and I don't want to have more than, I can probably carry 2 rods. I would prefer to carry one, walking around a pond and dealing with trees and bugs and snakes and cows and all the things you deal with when you're fishing in a pond. I would probably have no more than 2, and if I needed a third one, I would just double up on one of those 2. That would be my best setups for pond fishing, because I know I could do anything with those rods. So that's it for my questions. I'd love to have you guys join my class, my online fishing school, sufschool.com. We do workshops, we do live classes, and I can guarantee you there's some value there that will help you catch fish regardless of where you live in the country, whether you fish ponds, lakes, rivers, kayaks, bass boats, center consoles, or if you fish off a piece of wood. There's a way for you to learn how to fish within our community. I'd love to have you. Just give it a try.